Hi, Marnie. How are you?
Hey, Gary. I'm great. Thanks for having me here.
Hey, thank you. I am really excited to be interviewing you on your platform, on your page. I'm thankful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Well, thank you for the invite.
And, Marnie, I could ask you some things to share about your life, but I bet you a lot of people know these. But I'm just going to share a few things that I learned about you because the outside is fine, but it's really, I want to find out about your inside. And so some of the outside things, you've been married for 36 years. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you've got 3 adult kids. You've got a grandbaby here in St. Pete, Florida.
Yeah.
And you are from Minnesota. You now live in St. Pete. You are an author. Your first book was, I think, in 1996.
Yeah.
It's an interesting date because I hit rock bottom in 1996. That's a memory out of my mind. And you've got 13 books or maybe more.
Yeah.
That's a lot of books, Marnie. Wow. And you're a host of a radio show. You do podcasts. You do speaking events. What are some of the other things that you do that I didn't mention?
Well, I host womenspeakers.com, which is the largest online directory of Christian women speakers in the world. So that's typically what I'm busy doing. And then I love to speak and collaborate with women around the world. And so in the fall, I solo-circumnavigated the globe to speak at 6 conferences in 4 countries in 3 weeks and spoke many, many times. And anyway, so I love encouraging and collaborating with women.
Yeah. And, I see that and I watch that. I wasn't at those events because maybe guys can't be there. Maybe they could. I don't know. But I watched some of these and you were just an encourager.
That's my heart. That's how God built me. So I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen you encourage. I've seen how you respond to comments from your books. And I don't know how you do it. You just have this inside that's just really amazing. I'm digging in as much as I could dig in with you. But I can see this outside, and the outside is really good, right? But I think in life, the outside isn't what's most important. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, all of this is just going to go away. That doesn't go with us to heaven. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, I can go to LinkedIn. I can go to all these different sites. I can see what you look like, where you've gone, where you've worked and all that stuff. And I think that's all great. But what I want to do with you is I want to help people understand a little bit about your inside.
Okay.
And so I started this brand, this company back in 1997. And so in 1996, I was miserable. That was my rock bottom, but I started it a long time ago. And so now today I've got this site where I interview people. And let me tell you, I'm thankful. This is the first time I've done it through this Facebook Live. And so I'm excited about this. Usually it's just online. Yeah. So
nice.
I asked 2 questions. It's really simple.
Right.
But and feel free to share anything more that you want to share. If you want to preface anything, just feel free to do whatever you want. But I just thought of something today because my first question is, I say, my company is called Check Your Game. And I say, check your game. It's about examining one's game of life. And so all the areas of life, it's about examining it. And so just for some reason today, I thought of something. I thought of, when you're driving in a car and you see the check oil light flashing, what do you do about that?
Right. Yeah.
You take your car, you go figure out what's going on, the oil, the engine, or this or that. Check your game. I want you to share when the check have you had a check your game light going off in your life? Can you tell us about that? Can you tell us about something was wrong? It was flashing.
Yeah.
Tell us about what happened. And I would like just to hear a little bit about that and then what you did about it.
Sure. If we had several hours or weeks, I could just talk about these kind of things for a long time because there are a lot. Whenever you're stepping into new territory, when you're learning new things, when you're going past what is your comfort zone, you find yourself in those situations a lot, actually. I always say I live out loud. I just learned how to do all of this in front of you all. That's kind of just what God's called me to do, is to just live out loud. And so I find myself in that situation a lot. I think the one that, when you said you wanted me to share a story about something like this, the one that really came to my mind to share here, and again, there are so many, but we bought a retail store in 2006. We bought a restaurant in 2002, and we really loved small business ownership. And then in 2006, we bought a retail store. It was a 12,000 square foot retail store. It had 12 departments, and we had to learn to do everything. I said it was 2 years before I had seen every process one time. That's how big it was. It was so much to learn and so confusing. So we get into this thing, and we assumed that what we would do is we'd take this old business that was kind of starting to fail. We'd take this old business and we would update it and we would computerize it and we would be ready to go. Well, to our shock, horror, and amazement, when we got into the business, we would say to a provider, and we had 128 suppliers for that business, each with individual accounts and over 50,000 individual SKUs that we had to keep track of. And we would just say, can you just send us the download data so we can enter it into our POS system? And they'd say, what is the POS system? We're like, well, it's where you keep track of the UPCs. What's a UPC? It's like, what? Really, they had no idea. They had our suppliers had no idea. So to try to do this business without computerization, without any kind of extra tools like that, to try to get it up and running was just terrifying. Not only that, but then the recession hit. Not only that, then we had brought in a Christian bookstore and a coffee shop. Then Kindle came out with a reader. Okay, that was brand new. So we had just invested over $100,000 into Christian books, and Kindle came out with a reader. And then up the street, they brought in the only other coffee shop in town. So we were in a very small town, 1,700 people, really small audience. And so they brought in a coffee shop, and then another store and 2 more stores came in selling very similar product to ours. So if you can imagine, it was just from the get-go, it was climbing Mount Everest every day. It was terrifying. It was so much work. I remember after a couple of years one night, and we were managing the restaurant as well at the same time, homeschooling our kids. I had womenspeakers.com online. I was still writing some books at that time. So it was insane. And I remember one night I was leaving the store, and I had glanced at the clock on my way out, and it was nearing 3 o'clock in the morning. And that was not terribly unusual. And I looked straight up at heaven and I said, God, how long can we keep doing this? And in my heart at that moment came this shocking response. And God just prompted in my heart, and isn't it interesting that you want to? And I thought, that is fantastic. We do it. We just crazy. We just get up every morning and we go running back to the starting line again to do another whole long day of this insanity. And we did that between the restaurant and the retail store. We did that for 14 years. There was a time, Mary, that we realized that the retail store was going down. We thought it was going down the whole time. Like we wondered, can we make it another 6 months? Can we make it another year? Should we shut it down? We from the very beginning, we didn't know if we could actually pull it off, but we kept it going from 2006 all the way to 2016. But there came a day in about 2015 when I was walking through the store. Again, it was at night. I was alone in this big, big, dark building, and I was walking down the aisle, and all of a sudden I had a picture, and it was like a vision kind of in my mind. It was a picture, and it was it was as if I was looking at a child, like my child. I was as if I was looking at my child on a hospital bed with tubes and lines keeping it alive. It was just on life support. But I realized in that moment, it wasn't a child, it was this business. And we had named the business Soulutions, S-O-U-L, Soulutions. And it was Soulutions on the hospital bed, and it was just gasping for its last breath. And I knew in that moment it was going to die. Up until that moment, I didn't know if it was going to die. I hoped it wouldn't. We loved it so much, but I knew in that moment it was going to die. And tears right away. They're coming now even. It was a very big loss. But I just prayed about that for the next couple of days. I was like, okay, God, what do I do with this vision? And what came to my heart to do was, if I knew that my child, my physical child, was literally dying, was going to die, and God had comforted me that that was what was supposed to happen. Now it's going to die. What would I do? And I thought, if it was a child, then I would make the child as comfortable as possible. And I would make every person around us as comfortable as possible through the process of saying goodbye. And so that became my new mission. I just decided that's what I'm going to do through this whole process of watching this business die. I'm going to just make all the customers, all the vendors, all the employees, everybody just as comfortable as possible as we all say goodbye to this business that we have loved so much. So I think that's probably one of my saddest and most it was such a stretching experience for all 10 years. We always were wondering if we were going to be able to make it.
Yeah. That is, you just had one after the other. It's just like the bad news didn't stop.
Right. For 10 years.
For 10 years. Wow.
We had one slip fall in that whole time, one thing. And they took away our insurance. It was just one thing after another. It was so sad. And yet I would always say, people would say, how's it going at Soulutions? Because everybody loved the store. I mean, people would come in from out of town. They would drive for miles to come to the store. And people from big cities would come in and say, this is amazing. My husband built on the second floor of the store, he built a glow-in-the-dark mini golf course, 18 holes. Wow. It was the most amazing story. It was so much fun. And people would say, how's it going at Soulutions? And I didn't know how to honestly answer that, because it was always so hard. Yeah. But what I ended up doing is this, and it's a great principle for life. I made a box. And in this box, I put all the financial nightmare of Soulutions. Yeah. I put it in a box. And when somebody says, how's Soulutions going? I would just take this box and I would move it over here. And I would say, awesome. We love it. We have great employees. We have great customers. We have great vendors. We love it. It is such a fun business. And honestly, except for the tremendous financial strain the entire time, it was truly a great business.
Yeah. I would have loved to have gone there. It sounds, I mean, golf is awesome, but the store itself, big store. And I'm assuming it's a faith-based, the Christian bookstore. Somewhere.
Well, it had everything, Gary. It had, and this was why it was so hard to learn it, is because every department had its own business plan. Yeah. And so it had an office department. It had a pet department. It had fabric and crafts and party and gifts and floral. And it went on, all 12 departments. And I said, whenever we hired somebody, I said they always had to be the Renaissance woman, because she had to be able to make a latte, cut your fabric, and grab your crickets. I mean, this woman had to be really a woman's woman here. Yeah, and so we had the most amazing people who worked for us, and our customers were just a delight.
And I know your employees really like you, because I was reading some comments about you, of course, from a long time ago, how you were the best. And I believe it. So isn't it, it's too bad that we just don't have all these wins in life and everything goes well and we get the best grades, we make the most money, the families are perfect. But could you imagine if that store was just amazing, it did well every year, you got better and better, you're still there, would you have an impact on lives like you do now?
Of course it would be different. Of course it would be different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I always felt like the store was a ministry too. Even the restaurant, I felt like the restaurant was a ministry too. That whatever you're doing, whatever God has you doing today, just do it for Jesus and he can use you in whatever you're doing. But I do this, a lot. I put, everything on this open hand.
Yeah.
And then I let God choose what I get to keep and what I don't get to keep. And it makes it a lot less painful than when everything's in this hand and he's always doing this thing, to let us go on the thing he wants to move us out from.
Yeah.
And there's seasons and there's reasons for seasons. And we just have to know, just because it's like this today doesn't mean it will be like this forever.
Yeah. And so I think what I heard you saying is that you had this dream, you saw this baby, and you're losing this and you knew it. And that's when you recognize, I just look at that as like this check your game moment. Like, now, what am I going to do about this?
Biggest red light ever. Yeah.
I'm going to take care of my employees. I'm going to take care of my customers. I'm going to take care of the people around me. I'm going to serve and not be feeling sorry for myself or whatever.
Right.
And so that's an awesome story. And I guess the second question is, you've kind of filled some things in there, but advice. If somebody else is going through, you've already shared it, but if you want to do this again, what advice do you give?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things that I did specifically that I want to share, because I always say that I would have more faith if it didn't feel so irresponsible. And so I am very childlike in my faith with God. I just trust him. I trust him that if he says he's going to take care of me, he's going to take care of me. And even if it looks like he's not, he is. I trust him. But sometimes that feels very irresponsible. So as we were looking at losing Soulutions, and I mean, it was so different. Like, the restaurant was different. The restaurant was successful. The restaurant we sold to a great family. The restaurant was different. But the retail store, we couldn't sell it to anybody. We couldn't in good conscience try to sell it. It wasn't making money. Yeah. And so we either had to go bankrupt or to clearance it and then sell the building. So that's what we chose to do, because we wanted to pay off the people that we had trusted us. So we did a big clearance thing. And then we had this building. And the problem was that the building couldn't be sold. The building was just this nightmare. And we were stuck in this situation with this building that we couldn't sell. And we tried to get zoning to change it and make it into different things. We couldn't get the zoning. It was terrible. We were stuck with this building then. And every day, so what I did is there was a day that I just said, God, how do I think about this? And there was this phrase that came to my mind. And I use the word perfect a lot, but I'm talking about perfect from God's perspective, not like perfect from what I would call a perfect, but what God would call perfect. And so he just gave me this phrase, Gary, that I just said over and over, whether I was cleaning a warehouse or doing some other task that wasn't using my brain. I would just over and over say this phrase: thank you, God, for sending the perfect buyer on the perfect day in the perfect way with the perfect pay. And I would say it over and over and over by faith. And I would be sweeping and I'd be dancing and I'd be saying this: thank you for sending the perfect buyer and the perfect day and the perfect way with the perfect pay. And I did that for almost 2 years. And it was so scary. It was like, wow, what are we going to do? Because we couldn't rent it, we couldn't sell it, and we couldn't leave it behind. We just had to own it. And it was just like, in the end, and I can't mention the name of the company, but in the end, a corporation purchased it from us and they left it sit empty. Wow. They just bought it at the price we had it for sale for.
Wow.
And they just let it sit empty and we were able to leave. Wow. And so I just encourage you, whatever it is that you're looking at, God is so much bigger than your challenge. And even if your challenge goes on for years and years and years and years, doesn't matter. Just keep your eyes, I always say, keep your eyes off the waves and onto Jesus.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I don't know. I haven't kept track of time, Marnie. I said I was,
Oh
but I'm
yeah.
not sure.
Well, we better be done here, but
We better be finished.
you know what?
Thank
I
you.
want to can I just say hi to everybody
Yeah,
from
yeah,
that
absolutely.
town up in Warroad, Minnesota. I love you. I miss you. And man, if we could have made it work, we would have. But God had different plans, and I'm so grateful that God knows what He's doing.
And I'm thankful that you're here in St. Pete, close to
Yes,
me. And
yes.
so that's exciting to me. When we connected on LinkedIn, I didn't realize you live so close.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting. And so, I just want to finish things up. Marnie, first of all, how can people get a hold of you for those who don't already know you?
Sure. Yeah, Marnie.com, just MARNIE.com, or you can find me on YouTube at just search for Marnie Swedberg and you'll find me there.
Okay, that sounds great. And then before I share some things, is there anything that I can do for you? I like to ask. I like to ask everybody. I don't necessarily have a lot, but I want to ask and I want to help if I can. So I want you to know that.
Thank you. Well, I can't think of anything other than let's just try to share this around. It was really fun to share this story. I think it's probably the first time I've ever publicly shared that story. So thank you for asking me, Gary. That was really kind to offer.
Well, that's maybe because there's no Check Your Game out there. Maybe that's
right. We need to checkyourgame.com.
And so to leave, my name is Gary Rogers, and my company is Check Your Game. And you can you can get in contact with me at checkyourgame.com, and you can read stories. I don't have any video stories. This is the first one. I will post it, but you can read other stories about men, women, and about their times in life when they've examined their life and made changes. They've had this oil alert, check oil go off, and they want to share about that. So they want to give advice back to others who are dealing with something similar. But anyway, thank you so much, Marnie Swedberg. And this has been a great, 20 minutes, 25. We could talk for hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.